how to use the Shaper tool in Illustrator. You can find the Shaper tool in the Tools panel, and I'm using Illustrator CC 220, but you can use 219, 218, etc. There's a few things you can do with it. You can create shapes. Simply draw a circle. As long as it loosely looks like a circle, it will draw a circle. You can also draw an ellipse, just draw an ellipse shape, and it will draw it. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes it just ignore it and you will get nothing. You can also draw a rectangle. Again, if it decides it is not a rectangle, it will just draw nothing. Sometimes it will draw something else. Of course, at that point, just undo. So you can draw, again, another rectangle or a square. So if it loosely looks like a square, it will draw a square. And also you can create a polygon. And this one's probably the trickiest one. Sometimes it will create a circle or a square instead of a polygon. It does work in most cases, as long as it can recognise the design. And also you can draw straight lines. If you try and create a spiral design or a squiggle, it will not create that. The Shaper tool can create a number of different shapes. However, there's more to it than that. You can use it to merge designs and remove parts of the path. In this video, I'm going to show fairly basic shapes. I'm not going to create a complex design. You could use it with hundreds of shapes, but I'm just going to go with 2 or 3. Created 2 circles, one red and one blue. Make certain that nothing is selected and then go over to the Shaper tool. You're now creating a shaper group. You can hover over it and you can see little dots. The whole design is alive, so you can keep editing it until you expand it. As you hover over, you will see these dots. Well, what you can do for each of the parts, you can squiggle over each of those parts. You can then remove that part. You can squiggle or doodle over different parts, such as the fill, and that will be removed. You can also do it over the stroke, and that will be removed. Or maybe the central part, you can remove that as well. Squiggle over the blue fill, and that will be removed. At all times, remember it is still live. You can still edit the design. You can also merge paths. So go from the blue all the way over to the red, and it will become an entire blue path. You can also do the reverse. You can go from red all the way over to the blue, and the entire path will become red. You can also do the same with 10 or 15 shapes, though sometimes it will just ignore one of the shapes. But it's still live. If you want to turn it back to a normal shape, what you can do, just go to the Object menu and expand. Once you're happy with the settings, click OK. If you go back to the Shaper tool, you will find you can no longer apply your edits using the Shaper tool. It's all been turned into a normal shape, a regular shape. So I'm going to move that. I'm going to show you another couple of examples. So I'm going to go to create another circle. But I'm also going to add additional shapes. So a rectangle. Again, not the most complex shapes. I'm going to create another rectangle, so you'll have 3 shapes in total. But of course you can create more than 3 shapes. Deselect all of the shapes again. Go to the Shaper tool. And I'm not going to colour them at this point, so I'm just going to... But what you can do, you can see, again, when you hover over, you can see these dots appear. And you can do a squiggle any of those little areas. So there's just an area there. Sometimes you probably best use the navigator. Zoom in so you can actually access one of the... Sometimes it's a bit too small and you find you delete the wrong bit. Or you just can't delete it because it's too small. So you might, like with that line there, you might have to zoom in to do it. And you can go to any part of it and remove it. It's still live. Still live. So you can still edit the design. You squiggle over that little line and you can remove it. And you can squiggle over that rectangle and remove it. Or the circle. Now you can also just click on that design, just click on that little rectangle there, and you can do various things. You can resize it. You can still edit the corners if you wish. You can still modify those at any point. Once you change the corners, it does make it slightly harder to edit. Go to the central point and hold down the Alt or Option key and drag to duplicate. You can use that to build a more complex design, and it's still editable. Once you've finished, you can go over to that right side arrow, click that to go back to normal mode. You can then click it again, that arrow, and go into construction mode again. Click on the path and then you can transform it. You can resize it, etc. Go to the central point, that little dot in the center, and then move the path around. You can also rotate it. You don't have to just rescale. You can also apply other transforms as well. If you go beyond the shaper group, it will expand out for you. You can also go to the circle and resize that as well. If you move the shape out of the region, it will be removed from the group. You can also use the pi angle, so you can change the pi angle of your circle. Once you've finished your edit, you can always go over to the right side and click the arrow to go back to normal editing mode. You can then use the selection tool to modify it in a number of ways, such as move it or scale it. You can also expand it, go to the object menu and expand. If you go back to the shaper tool, you will see you can no longer apply the shaper tool. There's no dots appearing in the design. It is no longer live. You can use circles, you can use all kinds of other shapes, but you can also use lines. Just go over to the line segment tool and just draw a number of lines. You could of course use the shaper tool to draw the lines as well. You could of course create far more complex designs than this. I'm just creating a few lines just to show as an example. So create a couple of lines crossing over each other. Deselect all of the lines and then go to the shaper tool again. You can now apply a squiggle across the lines to remove them. Just squiggle simply over the central part of that design. You can now go to the right side and squiggle over that a bit as well. The lines can be all removed. If you use the curvature tool or pen tool to create a complex design, you can use the shaper tool to remove parts of the line. You can't combine lines. You can always click on the line and then go to the central point and just drag it. Just move it around or resize it. You can move it up and down and you will see the dots, the length of the dots change. If you reverse this, you can see the line, the dots change again. You can then use the shaper tool to remove more of the lines again. So just go to the other parts of the line, just do a squiggle over those. You can repeat this until of course you've got no additional lines that are crossing over. And if you apply the squiggle now, the line will just vanish. Select the group and go to the object menu and expand. Once you've done that, it just goes back to normal lines. I've finished with lines now. I'm just going to remove them. Go back to the Tools panel and create some more shapes. These are all very basic designs, very basic shapes. You could use this with much more complex designs. Set the colour of the design. Create some more rectangles. Maybe change the colour. Green. Deselect everything and then go to the shape tool. And again, when you hover over it, you can see those little dots appearing again. And there's like that bit there, that central bit. You can just do a squiggle over that and that will be removed. Squiggle over the bottom bit and that will be removed. Again, you can squiggle over that little line in between and that will be removed. You can click on the small rectangle and edit that. Maybe resize it, move it around, or click the little dot in the center point, and then hold down the Alter Option key and drag to duplicate the design. And that will also be part of the Shaper group. You can use that approach to create much more complex designs. Sometimes it does fail. I've had a few times where I drag and it will not be part of the group. You can select individual parts and then resize those. You can also rotate them and apply other transformations. If you drag the path away from the group, outside the Shaper group, it will be removed from the group. You can, of course, use the little squiggle. So you can go along those lines at the bottom and you can just squiggle across them to remove them. You can move between construction mode and normal editing via that right arrow. So while you're in construction mode, what you can do, you can squiggle over those rectangles to remove them, or maybe go to the red part of the design, squiggle over that and remove that. Again, you will notice the strokes haven't been removed. If you want to remove the stroke, just squiggle over that, and then the stroke will disappear. Click the arrow on the right to go back to normal editing. Hope you found this tutorial of interest. Please subscribe to the Graphic Extras channel, always adding new tutorials about Illustrator, Photoshop, Affinity Photo and many others. Please add a comment or two, always appreciated, a dislike or like. Thank you much.